we received a question in response to the podcast with Cyril. And the question is, it would be interesting to hear what Cyril's opinion is on Joseph Beuys, whose worldview regarding art was that every human being is creative and thus an artist, and insisted that art must be considered as the creative impulse of each individual. For example, that business needs to become an artistic creation, that the classic arts are part of the materialistic death process, and that living art is what is created by individuals.
Yeah, interestingly enough, many years ago, I was involved in doctoral research at the university on the work of Joseph Beuys. So I know his work very well. I've published articles about Joseph Beuys, and one of the key things that I focused on was, you know, the worldview of Joseph Beuys in relation to Rudolf Steiner, because almost everything in Joseph Beuys comes from Rudolf Steiner. You know, he based his whole understanding of the creative process on Steiner. I want to say in general about performance art and conceptual art is it has its place. I think it's very much has its place. And of course, everything should become an art. Medicine should become an art, agriculture is an art, everything should become an art. And every field of human activity should become more creative. I agree with that. But I don't see why, just because you've now got social art or creative art or whatever, that you need to abolish the traditional categories of art. I mean, this is now an additional new art. When Steiner gave his picture of all the arts, you know, the seventh art is the art of you know, it's the social art. And if you like Beuys's, he didn't actually specify, Steiner didn't specify what that seventh art would be, but I think Joseph Beuys has provided that. But I don't think establishing the seventh art eradicates the future role of all the other arts. I think that's, you know, my daughter said to me, because I was discussing it with her the other day, and she said, look, just, you know, she put a very trivial example. She said, you know, if we're eating ice creams and there are all these different flavors, and somebody creates a compound ice cream that includes all the colors and flavors in it, and you really enjoy that new ice cream, it doesn't mean that you can't still enjoy the old ice creams. You know, I mean, it's a very trivial way of putting it, but, you know, Steiner went to great pains to lay out what these traditional arts are underpinned by spiritually. And he obviously saw thousands of years of a future history for these arts. I agree that the classic art forms in the very traditional academic way of practicing them, you know, like they did in the old academies, I agree that that's dead. That's come to an end. But the whole point about Steiner's approach to these arts is that he gives them a renewal for the future. Painting becomes renewed for the future. It's not the old classic art form of painting that he's talking about. So, you know, that's what my answer would be in short, you know, that, you know, eurythmy for that matter, you know, is a new art. But really, you know, he built the Goetheanum, Steiner, with all the arts renewed for the future. Why would we want to abolish those? I think it's a complete misconception. Why would Joseph Beuys take the whole of his world conception comes from Steiner? So obviously reveres Steiner highly to base everything he does on Steiner, and that can be proved conclusively that he did that. But then reject a basic idea of Steiner's about the arts. You know, why would he do that? There were lots of people around Steiner, around Beuys at the Düsseldorf Art Academy, who were practicing painting and other traditional art forms. And he allowed everyone their freedom. You know, if you want to continue painting or doing traditional art forms. I mean, thousands of people are still doing painting. Who can say that painting has come to an end now just because somebody's doing performance art? You know, it doesn't make sense to me. And why does the fact that we all have to become creative when we're mechanics or chefs or hotel managers or whatever mean that you can't still practice the traditional arts? So one doesn't replace the other. They're completely different categories of creativity. I mean, how else can I put it? You know, it just seems like it just seems sort of self-evident to me that that would be the case. I think there was a point in the history of postmodern art where, you know, avant-garde artists would declare, you know, traditional art is dead, and we now do performance art or conceptual art. And, you know, Marcel Duchamp famously exhibited a urinal and called it an artwork and signed it and all these things. That's been going on for 100 years. But there's still thousands and thousands of people who are practicing painting and music and all those things. I mean, I don't think it's proved to be the end of anything. I think that's... But yeah, I'd love to see more art in commerce and in business and more creativity there. That I think is a valid thought. So maybe we leave it there, Tilana, at the risk of becoming repetitive.